grandparents, I have a bone to pick with you. No one told me before I became a mother how much of this job was finding lost things. This week I found lost glasses, a lost library book, lost worksheets, lost socks, lost stuffies, and a lost necklace. I also found plenty of things that I didn't know I should have been looking for, some odd discoveries in the couch cushions, and something in the back of the fridge that I think was alive. And I was not terribly organized before I took this job, parenthood that is, and with the distractions and pressures of keeping other human beings alive, I find I mislay my keys every time I set them down, and my coffee mug every morning, and the book that I wasn't quite finished with. And to make matters worse, when I was a kid, I had reoccurring nightmares about losing my shoes before school. Because somewhere along the way, I had internalized the idea that losing things was a stain on my character. That good people are organized, on time, and dependable in all things. They also probably return every email in a timely manner. It is amazing how lost we become in other people's expectations of us, and how lost becomes synonymous with being a disappointment, or being unworthy, or being broken, or even being of questionable character. But if lost isn't about being wrong or a disappointment or even being a sinner, a wretch like me, but what if being lost is about losing track of who you are? That being lost is forgetting even for a moment that you belong to the flock of the Good Shepherd. Forgetting for a fraction of a second that you are deeply and completely beloved. In Matthew's gospel, a conversation about children that we heard last week has turned into a conversation about other little ones. Right before this, Jesus introduces it as the little ones who believe in Jesus, the neophytes, the new Christian converts. Jesus calls the community to special care and compassion for these little ones, whose choice to follow Jesus could mean leaving behind one's family or community. It could mean new and strange ways of living or submitting to persecution. I think about the newly sober or those recently released from prison. How easy it is to meet up with old friends and visit old haunts and return to old ways of living. It is the will of the parent, Jesus says, that they not be lost. But if they are, they're like a sheep who has strayed from the flock, sought out by the shepherd. I mean, the shepherd actually exists for the lost sheep, and the sheep on the edges of the flock who are vulnerable to attack, and the sheep who can't seem to find the green pastures and the still waters. And at the end of this story, it's the lost sheep, not the loyal, obedient flock, but the lost sheep who is with the shepherd. Last week, Pastor Alicia's dad was here in the adult forum talking about a ministry that he's been a part of for several years, Kairos Prison Ministry. And this ministry goes into prisons to listen, love, love. They spend a weekend with folks incarcerated in maximum and medium security prisons, and the pinnacle of this weekend is Saturday, when Kairos team members and their inmate guests consider who they need to forgive. They make a list on a piece of paper throughout the day, maybe friends and family, but also perhaps the arresting officer, the district attorney, the sentencing judge. Inspired by the inmates' honesty and vulnerability, Bill noted that even the Kairos team members who prepared for this exercise in advance were often surprised at who they feel called to forgive. And it turns out that they're writing all of this on a piece of rice paper, and so at the end of the evening, it is dissolved in water, a metaphor for the act of forgiving. And after hearing about Kairos, the first question that came to my mind wasn't whether or not, the first question that came to my mind was whether or not weekends like this have an impact on recidivism rates. Like, do folks who participate commit fewer crimes when they're released? And it's an honest question, right? And maybe even a good one for understanding criminal justice. But as I thought this week about lost sheep and the lovingly pursuing shepherd, I realized that the question assumes that ministry done in prisons is solely about the impact on the lives of those who have no contact with the criminal justice system. The question assumes that inmates are only worthy of ministry insofar as they can be rehabilitated, and not because they are deeply beloved children of God. That was pretty convicting. Back in ancient Israel, David and his band of soldiers has been away with the Philistine army. And to David's great relief, the generals of the Philistines thought it best that David not fight with them against the Israelites. Better not to give him a chance to turn traitor and sabotage the Philistine defense. Unfortunately, while David was away, the Amalekites kidnapped women and children and the servants and the flocks. And I have to admit, when I read this story, for the life of me, I couldn't realize David's hesitation. Why does he consult with the Lord and ask for this ephod, which is like a divination tool? We have not seen him do that, despite all the marauding and conquering that he's been doing of other people. He never consults with the Lord until this moment. And then I realized he saw the women and the children and the servants and the flocks as replaceable. These were things. They were property that was won and lost in battle. And so his inquiry is basically, well, is it worth it, God, to go after them? In the real world, that's what the shepherd would wonder about the one dumb lost sheep. Was it worth it to pursue it? Somewhere along the lines, we have begun to believe this about ourselves. That we are either in the flock and doing the right thing, or we are lost and a dead weight. We are either contributing to society or we are costing it. We either have done enough or we haven't. And we evaluate ourselves and one another along these lines and assign a value. Are we even worth it? But in this parable, by the end, it is the lost sheep who is with the shepherd. The truth is, even when we look up and realize that we're hanging out with the flock, we often still feel lost. We're adrift because we've lost ourselves under cultural conditioning and everyone else's opinion of us and the baggage that we've been hauling around since childhood. We're lost because we can never give enough, contribute enough, or balance enough. We're lost because society has judged us and found us wanting, and most of us in this room have steady jobs, a house, and no criminal record. Imagine if that were not true. Strictly speaking, this parable is a mess. There's even a joke that preachers tell about this, that if a shepherd has 100 sheep and loses one and goes in search of it, how many sheep does the shepherd have when he returns with the lost sheep? One, right? All the rest are going to be scattered around. But maybe this place that we're so sure that the parable falls apart is actually where the parable holds, because it is where we are held fast. Because if we are lost, the parable says, the shepherd will find us. It is the lost sheep who are with the shepherd. A think about David and how when he discovers that everything is missing, he inquires of God. And I really hope that God's reaction was like censored a little bit. That God didn't just like answer, but God roared, "You dummy! Those that you consider the least are mine. Those who you wonder after, I am already and always with. Come and find them, you silly shepherd." Beloved, if you are feeling lost today, if the weight of that juggle or the expectations, the balance, inflation, the demands at work, caring for your own flock, estrangement from those you love, if you are feeling lost, I want you to know this. You are right where you belong. This is not a place for people who have it all together, thank God. It is not for the people who are so in love with God that somehow nothing is ever out of place in their lives. This is not the place this is the place for the people with messy houses and messy relationships and messy lives. This is the place for the people who cannot find their keys any more than they can find themselves. Because this is the place for the lost. Because this is the place where we hear about a God who loves us so much that God will do anything to find us. Amen.